Hello, I hope you are doing well. My name is Milad Kambari from the 3D Redbox team, and in this introductory video for the Automatic Texture Loader plugin, I want to show you what this plugin does, what tasks it performs, and how much it increases our work speed. First of all, I will tell you a simple point about this plugin. This plugin helps you so that all your PBR textures, whether textures you made with Substance Sampler software or textures that are baked, can easily enter Substance Painter with one click and each sit in its proper place. After you have installed the plugin, this plugin adds an item to the File section, to the File menu here. Automatic Texture Loader, you can see it here. This plugin has three parts. The first part is Single Model, for when you want to load a single model and have the textures automatically applied to it. The second mode is a mode where, yes, you want the models to be loaded one by one, the textures to be combined with each other, and an export to be taken automatically. That is, a PBR export is taken from those textures. These are the items that are supported in this plugin. Let's start with the first case, a case where we want to bring a texture in a single tank way, where normally you would think this texture had a high poly and a low poly. Now we want to load it. First, we start with FBX. We load our low poly FBX model. The texture has been baked before, and these baked textures are placed in the mesh folder. Look here, we have one high poly model, we have one low poly model, we have a folder named matte. These are the rules that we must observe if we want to use this plugin. We have a folder named mesh. The meshes are those same baked textures of high poly onto low poly. Where do these textures set? These textures come and set automatically in the texture set settings section. Let's test it together. I define the FBX from here and say that I've baked the textures and they are ready. So I define the mesh folder for it and hit load model texture. When we hit this load model texture, we wait until its loading is finished and now our texture is loaded. Here, in the Texture Set Settings section, let's see all the textures automatically came and sat in their places. Normal instead of normal, ambient occlusion instead of ambient occlusion, and every texture that came, every texture you had in your bake, it detects itself and comes and places it in its proper place. This is for when you have baked textures. Now imagine you have a model that does not have baked textures. You have put a texture on it. You made the texture somewhere else. For whatever reason, we have its PBR texture. For example, we made its texture in Substance Sampler. We made it PBR texture in Substance Sampler. Now we want to bring it into Substance Painter and load it, and we don't have a baked texture either. So here we open it again. Here, instead of giving the mesh mode, I give the material mode, the low poly, and I say the material mode. What does material mean? Material means that instead of the textures going to sit in a texture set section, a material is created in the layers section, and these textures come to sit in the materials section, and automatically each texture goes to sit in its own place. Base color instead of base color, metallic instead of metallic, roughness instead of roughness, ambient occlusion, collision, height, whatever we have sits in its own place. Just wait a few moments for this texture loading to finish and for the material to be created for you. And in this way, see, the material was created here, the automatic material, and each of the textures was placed in its own place. Even if you have an ambient occlusion material and your ambient occlusion channel is not turned on, it goes itself and turns on the ambient occlusion channel and adds this texture to the material section. This is the second mode. How is the third mode? I close it again. The third mode is a mode where your texture is baked and you also have PBR textures. So I provide the FBX once more. I provide my baked texture. Actually, we provide its folder. When we provide its folder, it goes itself and picks up the textures in the folder. I also apply the material section to it. I define it for it and hit load material texture. Again, it takes a few moments for these textures to come and be created. And here it both creates the material for us and also comes and adds the textures in the texture set settings. Look here, textures were added both in the texture set settings and in the material section, meaning each texture went directly and separately to be placed in its proper spot. Well, that's that. Now sometimes you want to combine these two, meaning the textures of the material section and your baked textures with each other and get a PBR output. And you want this to happen automatically for you. Again, from the file section, let me give you the explanations here. I close it again. Now these are ready here because we had defined these paths for it once before. Now look at the bottom here. It says, should I only call the model with its textures and load it or not? Should I take an export as well? Taking an export means that it combines these together and directly gives the final output. And at what resolution do you want this output to be done at?
For example, I say take a 2048 resolution for me. So automatically, the model is imported, the textures are applied to it, and finally it takes a PBR export for us. Where's this export placed? Its folder is placed next to these same files we had, the files we loaded right next to them. So I hit load here again, and here an export step is also added to the work, and it takes the export for us. And look at the PBR folder here. It has been added. We enter it, each of the textures has been exported, a name has been given to it, the same as our folder aim, and here it has taken the outputs for us. The PBR outputs, normal, ambient occlusion, metallic, roughness outputs. Let's go to the next case for when you have several models and you want these models one after another to do the same thing we did here. One after another, the baked textures and PBR textures that we made for it in Substance Sampler, for example, to be combined and to perform the baking process and the exporting task for us. We go to the Start Processing section. In the Start Processing section, it says just give me the folder that these models, these assets, are inside. I say this is our parent folder, we give it to it, and it detects those folders itself, saying in this folder there are some other folders with names like Asset 01, 102. It detects its subfolders. And here, when we hit the Yes button, it says, is your matte folder named matte and is your mesh folder named mesh? Meaning the folder of textures that are supposed to sit in the materials section should be in the matte folder, and the textures that are supposed to sit in the texture set settings. And the PBR export should also be taken. Is all of this correct? Should I start? We say yes, start. When we start it, it comes one by one and takes exports for us, takes PBR exports, places a folder next to our files, and automatically goes to the next folder. In this mode, how should it know which model it should load? I have put 3 conditions for it. Either the name of that file is Lowpoly, or the size of that file is smaller compared to the other files where we assume that file is Lowpoly file, or there is only one file inside that folder. In these 3 cases, it detects which folder file it should pick up. This is also from this batch loader section. Now let's go see the result. Well, asset number 1 is finished. It took a save for us. This is the folder it made for us, the PBR folder it made for us. Now we wait for it to make the PBR folder for asset 02 as well. This PBR folder was also created. In this way, we can use this plugin for our projects one by one automatically and perform the baked texturing or our PBR loading easily. In the end, it shows us that there were 2 folders. 2 folders are okay, finished without any problems, and complete. Good job.